Sorry, folks. We're going to begin this one on a sad note because, um, we began this summer movie camp by coming to this specific location, going to the movies. Well, this is the AMC Classic 12, formerly known as the AMC Classic 12, because AMC has announced that this location is permanently closed. I've noticed that AMC is doing that a lot with the Classic brand, that they are just closing locations. AMC really needs to get their crap together because you're not saving anything by adding the ads. And they just announced this within a week, and already they have taken the name off of the location altogether. That is, it's really sad to see this. There's a machine out here in the parking lot taking stuff down. So that was heartbreaking to see. Just one of the theaters that I spent my teenage years going to through most of my college years into present day, all of a sudden closed. But I'm not deprived of going to the movies. I live in a small town that's in between these two towns, and so the Marion Theater is no more. However, the Muncie Theater is still showing and is thriving. There's quite a few things I think that killed the Marion Theater. One is the economy and the location. Because where that theater is located behind a dead mall. That mall has been empty for years. Matter of fact, there's been several finance companies that have bought and sold the property, and they have no plans of putting anything in that except a Planet Fitness. And that's a Planet Fitness and an Applebee's is the only two things that's in that mall right now. And all the stores have closed. Matter of fact, there was a movie theater in that. A little two-screen movie theater, but yeah, the AMC Classic 12, as it's now called. Originally, it was called the Karasotis Showplace 12 when it first opened in the late 1990s. The first movie I ever saw in there was Bicentennial Man with Robin Williams. Now the last one is Jurassic World Rebirth. As of right now, I hope that somebody like another theater chain or a smaller theater chain buys it and reopens it. That's what I'm hoping for, but it's got some things against it. The location, the economy of the town is not the greatest. Most of the stuff that's like new business is being built on the other end of town, so it's kind of in a weird location now. The other thing is that the theater didn't have really any special amenities. It was state of the art when it was built I think it opened in 1999. I think is when it opened, and it had the state of the art back then. Now, of course, in 1999, state of the art meant digital surround sound and stadium style seating in all the auditoriums. The presentation was still by 35 millimeter film. Matter of fact, I've been to that location where a couple of instances where the where the film either was in a terrible presentation and or had shut down, but needless to say, When AMC took it over in 2009, they upgraded it to putting in all digital projection, but they had no plans to renovate. It was in dire need of a renovation. They had RealD 3D as a special amenity, but they did not have anything like IMAX or reclining seats. So that was another thing. And they should have done that. Instead of doing this, they wanted to do two separate brands, and it was like that. This happened before COVID, and they wanted to do when AMC bought out Carmike Cinemas. They wanted to rebrand everything, and they wanted to make like the more important theaters just regular AMC theaters, and then the theaters that were just kind of hanging around, they didn't care about, they rebranded as AMC Classic. That they were not going to spend any money to renovate or put the luxury seating in or anything like that. They just called it AMC Classic, and so on and so forth. It's really a shame that, but I found something out a long time ago that it works the similar way that a fast food restaurant works, is that you have a private owner who owns the building, owns the business inside, but they have to coincide with they buy into a franchise. So AMC Theaters is a franchise. So this owner owned and managed the people within it, but didn't want to spend the money to upgrade. Or maybe they just couldn't. I mean, but that's part of that's part of the game of the movie business. And here's the other thing: movie slate. After COVID, it's hard for anybody to go back to the movies now, because they put everything on the streaming platforms, and I'm sorry, but Netflix needs to be taken down a notch. And yeah, they just need to be taken down a notch, because they don't put any of their films into theaters, nor do they put it out on home video. I'm not paying, I'm sorry, for another $20 a month for another app just to get Stranger Things or Monday Night Raw. I'm sorry. We still need to do things the old-fashioned way, folks. We can't put everything onto these digital platforms. It's just heartbreaking what's happening to the movies, and plus, people don't view things the way they should. We need to be putting the phones away. Put the phones away for like 2 hours and engage in a story. It's really a whole list of things, from movie slate to poor management of the building, poor decision making, all the way around. So from the top to the bottom, there's a list of problems that we could do. I mean, that you could just go through and just list what was wrong. And not only that, that theater in particular had a lot of gossip about it, negative gossip. They had an outbreak of bed bugs several years ago. And they had an exterminator come in and clean and take care of the bed bug problem. But then people kept saying there's bed bugs, there's bed bugs, there's bed bugs. You know, I went there this past month. I never had that problem. But there was people still saying, well, there's bed bugs, and they were just, people do that stuff to cause problems. They really do. But we're continuing on the summer movie camp. I hate to begin this video with a downer of not being able to go to one location, but like I said, I'm not completely deprived of going to the movies. I still have one location left, and they seem to be doing pretty well because they took the time and upgraded. Now, I guarantee you they don't see the attendance numbers that they did before COVID. They don't. But what I think is keeping that theater going is they have the luxury seating, they have an IMAX format, they have the bar. So it's just, it was just a matter of it was a list of things why this other theater is shutting down. But hopefully something goes into that location, a business, because I'm really more concerned about the people who work there. It was jobs. I mean, it was now it was probably minimum wage, no doubt, minimum wage jobs, but still, those were people's lives. And AMC Theaters has not been a big help by putting in more ads before movies and just not caring about certain locations. And not only that, they just shut it down without any explanation. And when local press tries to contact the theater chain out in Kansas City to find any information about, they say, well, visit our website. That's it. We're closing you down. No explanation. What the heck? So, I don't understand these business models where they don't want people working for them or they don't want to make money. I don't get it. But so, let's continue on. Now, this is the summer movie camp. This will be the last video in this series. We're going to take a look at a film from the mid-1980s, I believe. I'm trying to think when this was. 1985. 40 years ago. So, what am I talking about? It is The Legend of Billie Jean. Yeah, this actually was a box office flop back in the day, but it has garnered a little bit of a following. It had a killer song that was released with it. It was by Pat Benatar. Yeah, what was this? Gosh, what was the song? Innocent. It had a killer song by Innocent by Pat Benatar. The song did really well, but the movie stunks in terms of the box office. Now, again, this has garnered a bit of a following. That's why Mill Creek Entertainment has picked up the film for Blu-ray release. So, gather round and check out The Legend of Billie Jean, released by TriStar Pictures, starring Helen Slater Christian Slater, no relation. Peter Coyote, directed by Matthew Robbins. Here's the legend of Billie Jean. The song that Pat Benatar sings is Invincible. I misspoke. Sorry, I thought it was, I don't know, because the lyrics go, we can't afford to be innocent, stand up and face the enemy, but it's Invincible. I don't know why I forgot that. But that was The Legend of Billie Jean, released by TriStar Pictures in 1985. The film didn't do very well at the box office. It was a big major flop back in the day. But it has garnered a kind of a cult following over the years. Of course, Mill Creek Entertainment has picked it up and distributed it on Blu-ray and DVD. So do look out if you would like a copy. So there's your free plug to that. So the film starts with Billie Jean and her brother Binks. They live in Corpus Christi, Texas. Say that 2 times fast. Yeah, Corpus Christi, Texas, and they're experiencing like an extremely hot summer, and they are bullied by a gang of teenagers who take their motor scooter, completely wreck it, and so they go to not only to the kid with the bill of what it's going to take to repair the scooter, and so the father shows up, the kid's father shows up, and he agrees to pay the $608 to repair the scooter if Billie Jean will perform sexual favors. Now, this is a PG-13 movie, so they do sneak in a couple of the F word, but it's not enough to give it the R rating or anything like that. And so the whole film is so after discovering this, that the kid's dad is wanting sexual favors, the brother Binks opens the cash register where the dad was hiding a pistol, shoots him in the arm, and so they're on the run. They're on the run from the police. They're on the run from any authorities. They can't stop, and then they keep going until they run into Keith Gordon. His character's name is Lloyd, and he's this rich kid. His son is his dad is played by Dean Stockwell. Dean Stockwell is running for Attorney General. He's a current Texas District Attorney. And so the whole rest of the film is they're on the run from cops, they're on the run from the authorities, but however, the kids throughout the state of Texas, they're not buying this. They kind of see firsthand what takes place at a mall, so they know what they kind of accept the fact that, hey, she's a rebel. This guy did something and wrecked their motor scooter. He needs to pay for it. And so that's all these kids know. And so she gathers this following of all these kids and all these teenagers to support her and encourage her on. It's kind of like the story of like a Bonnie and Clyde type story, but also they also show that there's a little bit of Joan of Arc in there, because when they run into Lloyd at his house, they go into his room where he has all these TV screens and all that, and they punch up some I think they punch up the Passion of Joan of Arc on TV, and they're going, "Who is that?" And the kid obviously knew who Joan of Arc is, and said that she cut off all her hair, disguised herself as a man to fight in the armies, and that was kind of a big no-no at the time, and so they burned her at the stake. Well, Billie Jean takes herself as like a modern-day Joan of Arc, cuts off all her hair, has Lloyd shoot a video, and they send it to the TV stations. It's broadcast all over, and so the kid, they all gather at this beach where they agree to give Lloyd back to his father. Because that's the other thing, and that's Lloyd's suggestion. Hey, you need a hostage, and to add to the story, they're not just going to give you the money. And so, yeah, and this film, it's really not deep. It's not a terrible movie. It's not bad. At the time, it was a flop. Nobody went to see it, but the song Invincible got played on the radio from Pat Benatar, which was a hit for her, but it didn't help the movie. The film was directed by Matthew Robbins. Matthew Robbins was Matthew Robbins was a friend to Steven Spielberg, actually. And this also was produced by Rob Cohen. Rob Cohen would go on to direct he would go on to direct movies like Dragonheart, Daylight, the first Fast and the Fast and the Furious. Of course, and Matthew Robbins also went on to direct Batteries Not Included for Spielberg. And yeah, you have Peter Coyote in the film, but also, if you catch a glimpse at one scene, there is a kid wearing an E.T. t-shirt. So, yeah, and of course, this also has Yeardley Smith in it. I completely forgot about her. Yeardley Smith, the voice of Lisa Simpson from The Simpsons. And, but yeah, this is just it's quite an entertaining movie. If you love the 80s movies, this falls right into that. It's just a shame it did flop. But it's a thing of the time. You watch it now and it's like, some things kind of still hold up. We still have to deal with crooked people and dirty people. Because that was the other thing, is that the villain, the dad that they're trying to get the money from, he's making money off of Billie Jean just by putting her name on toys and t-shirts and all this other stuff. So, and she's like at the end, because he hands her the money, all the money that he sold on all that stuff, and just like brush it under, like, oh, this didn't happen. But this time she has several witnesses to show who this guy really is. Now, earlier in the film, she rescues a boy from an abusive father in the same way, and she realizes that in order to catch somebody, you have to gather witnesses. And so when there's eyewitnesses seeing what's going on, that changes everything, because they can't hide. So, that was The Legend of Billie Jean. Stay tuned Next film is coming up. Well, it's time for the next feature, and I thought we need to just move this right along. It is a rainy, stormy Saturday night here in good old Indiana, and so, we're in the midst of this. We're in the midst of this summer heat, but however, the kids are back in school, so. But I'm hurrying up, trying to finish up this last video. So I thought about taking a look at a film from 1967 that also took place right in the heat of summer. But we're talking about the deep in the South, down in Mississippi, when this is from 1967. Well, this movie eventually led to a popular TV series that aired from the mid to late 80s all the way to the early to mid 90s, and dealt with all kinds of issues. It was mostly a crime. Well, the film was definitely a crime, and the TV show was definitely one of the a crime drama. And it was riding on the success of TV shows like Matlock and so on and so forth. What am I talking about? Well, this is the original 1967 film, directed by Norman Jewison, starring Sidney Poitier, Rod Steiger. It is In the Heat of the Night. Yeah, from 1967, released by United Artists. Won the Academy Award for Best Picture in 1967. And wow, it's it definitely is a very, very good film. But mostly the topic of this film is about racism and of course tied into a crime drama with what was going on. And I'll get into this after the film, that this film was very, very controversial when it was released because of one particular scene, and we'll find out why. So, strap in. From 1967, Rod Steiger, Sidney Poitier, directed by Norman Jewison, also starring Warren Oates and Lee Grant. It is In the Heat of the Night. In the Heat of the Night was a very controversial film when it first came out in 1967. Garnering praise from several critics and audiences, but it was a very controversial film because of the time it was made. Of course, America was still in the middle of the civil rights movement, and how slow the change was to accept the social change. And at the time, it kind of represented a turning point in the film. So in the film, what we have taking place is the film opens up in the middle of this town in Mississippi, Sparta, Mississippi. Originally, the movie was shot in Sparta, Michigan, but because of budgetary costs, they couldn't afford to change the name of the town, so they had to. But they could change the name of the state to Sparta, Mississippi. And not only that, they had already cast Sidney Poitier to play the part of Virgil Tibbs, and he was in no way going to go south of the Mason-Dixon line. So the movie had to be shot on the northern end of the country because that was where the things were the slowest in terms of social change, accepting someone who is of color as a character. And not only that, the film was controversial in one particular scene in which Virgil Tibbs slaps a white man who owns this cotton plantation. So the film opens up with the character of police officer Sam Wood stumbling upon a crime scene. He stumbles upon a dead body after leaving a cafe to get a Coke. He also, of course, drives by a neighborhood where this one particular teenage girl, in the middle of the night in the summer heat, likes to kind of show off. Now, in the film, you don't really necessarily see anything, but you obviously know what she's doing because you see certain parts of the body, but you don't see everything. But it's implied that she parades herself around so men can get a good look at her. And so one of these men is Officer Sam Wood. But then Sam stumbles upon a dead body that's laying in the street. Calls it in to the chief of police, who is Bill Gillespie, played by Rod Steiger. And he asks Officer Wood to see if there's anybody around. And so he finds, waiting at the train station, Virgil Tibbs. And Virgil Tibbs is brought into questioning by the chief. And then that's when it is revealed that Virgil Tibbs is a police officer. He is a police detective from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And even gives the specific number of his salary to Gillespie on how much he makes, and Gillespie can't believe it because it's a black man making more money than him. But also you find out that he's Philadelphia's #1 homicide detective, and so Detective Tibbs begins performing an autopsy on the corpse, and so that begins the investigation to some significant people in the town to who possibly killed this man. And the film was a very controversial film, but I think it's a film that was much needed at the time. The pace of the film is spot on, and it's a wonderfully made film. It was based on a book around the same time, but the film was so popular. Again, it won the Academy Award for Best Picture in 1967. But also, I didn't know this, but it went on to spawn 2 sequels, which was They Call Me Mr. Tibbs and The Organization. Not only that, it spawned a very, very popular and very successful crime series of the same name in 1987 that aired on first NBC, and then by the early 1990s had switched over to CBS. It was now, of course, when film is adapted for television, it's not exactly the same. The TV show kept two characters. Uh, Detective Tibbs for the TV show was played by Howard Rollins, and Police Chief Gillespie was played by Carol O'Connor. And so those were the only two characters that stayed the same. Actors changed, of course, and they had to come up with the rest of the characters for the TV show. But also, like I mentioned before, this movie was filmed in Sparta, Michigan, not Sparta, Mississippi. It was filmed in Sparta, Michigan, because Sidney Poitier, because of the racial tension that was going on at the time, was not going to film a movie about this certain topic south of the Mason-Dixon line. So, and he had to make that very clear to the producers because his life was at risk. And not only that, I think he had said some things at the time that had stirred up some ruckus down in the South. So, so he made it clear that he was not going to be a part of the production if they were to shoot in the actual South. And so the movie was filmed in the Midwest, to a town that they could have easily just swapped out but however, they did have to film one scene in the South, and it's a scene where Gillespie and Tibbs are driving through a cotton field. Well, here in the Midwest, there is no cotton fields like that. It is in the South, and so they had to quickly go down south, and I think they went to Alabama or someplace like that, filmed the scene of them driving through this cotton field, and then hightailed it back up here to the northern part for, just really quick. Of course, it's still a very good film. It still holds up. Its themes of tension, especially in this day and age, where we not only have the racial tension, but we also have tensions elsewhere on identity and ideals that the slightest little thing that is said, people can be offended by. But the film is a very, very good film. I do encourage everybody to check it out. It is available. The Criterion Collection has put out a version of it on Blu-ray. I myself just have the regular MGM Blu-ray. I think the only version that's available is the Criterion version. And as far as I know, all the bonus features on this are on that. And that's why I didn't upgrade to the Criterion version, because a key thing when buying physical media is the bonus content. And the only thing that was different was the transfer of the film. It's a better transfer. I believe that Criterion used either a 2K or a 4K transfer, while this was just simple 1080p. And of course, this was MGM catalog title stuff that they just ported over to Blu-ray. So that'll do it for this time around. Let's go on to the next feature. Well, this is going to be the final film of this summer movie camp, Kdog'S summer movie camp. So we're going to go back 41 years to a film that was a landmark in terms of the movie-going experience. And I'll explain why here in a second. This film was later remade in 2012. Very controversial reason why you shouldn't remake things, and yeah. But we're going to go back 41 years to the year 1984. There was a film that came out. It was the first film that received the PG-13 rating by the MPAA. Well, what film was that? It was Red Dawn. Yeah, from 1984. Featuring Patrick Swayze, C. Thomas Howell, Leah Thompson, Ben Johnson, Harry Dean Stanton, Ron O'Neal, and William Smith, Charlie Sheen, Jennifer Grey, Powers Booth, and the list goes on. And I thought, what an interesting way. Now this is a movie that takes place more in the fall, so what you're about to see is that what would happen if America was all of a sudden invaded, like how we invade other countries. What if that happened in reverse? And so we're going to take a look at this from United Artists in 1984, directed by John Milius, and with a screenplay by Kevin Reynolds. It is Red Dawn. So that was Red Dawn from 1984, released by MGM closing out the Kdog'S summer movie camp for this year. But let's get into this movie. This movie came out at a time when the Cold War was still going on, and there was still this fear that possibly the Russians could overtake us. And so John Milius, who at the time had just come off of Conan the Barbarian, was looking around for other projects, and someone at MGM had given him this script written by Kevin Reynolds that was at first titled 10 Soldiers, meaning 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. The number 10 soldiers. And they felt that it was right down his alley because John Milius had also co-written or written Apocalypse Now, so he was very. I don't want to say that Milius was very right-wing. I just took a peek at some of the behind-the-scenes featurettes. He said that he kind of is in the middle politically, but he said but when it comes to pro-patriotism and you can have my gun when you pry it from my cold dead fingers type of guy. And he even has that in the movie where some guy has it on his bumper sticker, but the guy's laying dead on the pavement, and a Russian takes the pistol out of his hand. So, but this film is, I would not look to this movie as deep military inspiration. There's no way that they would even think. This is my personal beliefs. If we are to be invaded, they're not necessarily going to go after the nation's heartland. They're not going to go after us. They're not going to go after Colorado or the Plain States or any of that stuff, where they're going to go after Washington, D.C., they're going to go after New York City, they're going to go after California, yada, yada, yada. They're going to go after where we have major centerpieces of our of what defines us as Americans. Okay, so they're going to go after New York City. They're going to go after Los Angeles. They're going to go after Washington, D.C. if they're ever going to do something like this. And then it's just going to consume that way. But in terms of them being, of us being invaded, they're not just going to go to the Colorado Rockies and just start open fire on a bunch of teenage kids. But then again, I could be wrong. That's just my opinion. But so that's what happens in this movie, is that a mixture of Cubans, Russians, and there's some other countries in there as well that are they were all communists, decide to invade because they depleted all their resources. They decide to invade the United States, so they invade this little town in Colorado where they gunned down a whole bunch. They gunned down a bunch of kids at a high school, but the smart ones hightail it up to the mountains after gathering a whole bunch of ammo and rifles and fighting for themselves. The movie is just, the concept of it is there, like it could possibly happen. I mean, we still are watching out for who else could invade us, especially ever since September 11th. The nation has been kind of looking at, okay, where are they going to strike next? Who could they strike? And but however, it's just, I don't think they're going to go after necessarily, like the Colorado Rockies. They're going to go after a major city, or Washington, D.C., so on and so forth. But the kids, these kids in this film, they go into the mountains and they fight off what's coming at. They're just up there surviving on hunting, deer, squirrel, rabbit, whatever they can shoot. But they realized, hey, we need supplies. But what doesn't make sense is that Ben Johnson's character, that said, he tells them, if you need anything, you come right here. They're dragging everybody else out and shooting them down, but yet Ben Johnson still and his wife are still sitting cozy under the fireplace. And he's even telling them, you're 40 miles behind enemy lines in the midst of World War III. Why haven't they drug you out then? It just doesn't make sense, okay? So these kids, they go off, they're fending for themselves, and they end up taking on the military, and with the help of our own military. But this is just a movie. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but it's fun to watch. It's entertaining. You do come to love the characters, and when something bad happens to them, you do feel emotional about them. You do care about them, but it's totally unrealistic. As a matter of fact, I punched up a video from the late 1990s in which comedian / film critic Joe Bob Briggs, part of the TNT Monster Vision, showed Red Dawn in a particular evening, and he brought on, at the time, the most decorated soldier, Colonel Hackworth, I believe was his name. And he said, this is the most unrealistic movie I have ever seen in my life. But he goes on to what he believed was going to be the whole, what was going to start World War III. And he was right in some respect. He said it's going to be terrorism, and that was before 9/11. So guess what we had? We had a terrorist attack when we were invaded. So last time we had any type of threat was COVID. So and that was, I would call that bioterrorism, because it was playing with viruses and illnesses, and which a lot of people died, a lot of people got sick, and so on and so forth. So with Red Dawn, us being invaded, during the middle of the Cold War, it's nothing more than just what would happen. What some conspiracy nut would imagine. Their fantasy. It's really. It's just interesting to see where the mindset was back, particularly back in the 80s. But this movie is, the original film is a lot of fun. I have never seen the 2012 remake, and I have heard nothing but negative things about it. And why does Hollywood feel that they need to remake everything that has, just because it's a name and they know it has profit behind that name? Why don't you do something original? Do an original story. I mean, but that's Red Dawn 2012. But for Red Dawn 1984, it definitely dates, but it's still a fun movie to watch. But don't look for it to be real. Don't. Like I said, if we were to be invaded by other countries, they're not necessarily going to drop into like middle America or right here. They're going to go to like Washington D.C. They're going to go to Los Angeles. They're going to go to New York. They're going to go to those places first. Now, don't get me wrong. We will feel the side effects. We will get the effects of that. Not the side effects, but the effects of it, because I was told this a long time, and I believe this is entirely true. And the same goes with culture. Things that happen in culture, good or bad. Whatever starts on either the East Coast or the West Coast. Let's say if it starts in the East Coast, which would be like New York and that area, then the West Coast will follow suit. And then it makes its way to the middle. Or if it starts out on the West Coast, the East Coast will follow, then it meets in the middle. So we would feel the effect, we would get the effect eventually. But just the fact that there's these yeah, it's a little too, it's nothing but fantasy what Red Dawn is, and it's a fun movie, but again, the realism is, I wouldn't look for it to be anything like that, because it's just a fun, movie. But yeah, and the other thing was the cast that was in this movie. It was not Patrick Swayze's first movie, because he had been in The Outsiders, and he had been in several TV shows. So he was fairly experienced, as well as Powers Booth. C. Thomas Howell, who had co-starred with Swayze in The Outsiders. He played Pony Boy. But it was Charlie Sheen's first movie. And Charlie Sheen was cast just because of Charlie had been on the set of Apocalypse Now, as well as John Milius, and Charlie's dad, Martin Sheen, was the lead character in Apocalypse Now. So, as well as Jennifer Grey, who would later co-star with Patrick Swayze in Dirty Dancing, and they never got along. They never got along on Red Dawn. They didn't get along on Dirty Dancing. Matter of fact, when you watch Dirty Dancing, that whole montage of when Hungry Eyes is playing and he's trying to teach her how to do this move where he runs his finger down her side without laughing, watch his face. He's getting frustrated and angry with her. But that tension also started with Red Dawn. Leah Thompson, I think it was one of her first big movie roles. Even though she wasn't the star, but she would go on. The following year, she would be in Back to the Future, and then so many other films, and is still quite well known to this day. But yeah, Red Dawn, closing out the Kdog'S summer movie count. So do come back. I'm going to do another series of where movies and this discussion about. But I'm not. We're going to take a little break. You may not see me for a few weeks, but I'll be back with another series about movies, and we'll have a discussion. We'll have some fun. Hopefully you do come back. So from me to you, enjoy school. See you later.